Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is James Corbett, publisher of the CorbettReport.com and editorial writer for the International Forecaster. He's speaking to us from Japan, where he's worked and lived since 2004. Welcome back to the show, James.
Well, thanks for having me back. Hope things are going well on the other side of the big Pacific pond this day.
Well, apparently the Americans don't like our steel and aluminum anymore, so they can pay more for their cans of beer and their cars because they don't have any plants to make it. And also, I wonder if President Trump's idea is to create jobs with protectionism. Right now, the U.S. has more job openings than people to fill them. So who would make this steel if they could make it?
Well, I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? If at least if these protectionist policies remain in place. But it's something Japan's going to be wondering about as well. I think this is an issue that's obviously affecting the Japan-U.S. trade relationship as well, and I'm sure will be discussed at least on the sidelines, if not on the main lines of the G7 summit. Well,
yes, they huddle up in Quebec. Some people are calling it the G6+1 because Trump doesn't want to play well with anybody else. What do you think they'll be trying to convince him? That free trade works? And, of course, you'll say right now it's unfair trade.
Well, we don't have to speculate. We can go directly to the horse's mouth, as it were. This just in from Reuters that Abe has said on Wednesday that he wants to send a message to the Group of Seven Leaders Summit that no countries benefit from trade protectionism. And my message is G7 should play a role in free and fair global economic development, unquote. So that's obviously what people are going to be concentrating on, given just the most recent moves from the U.S. And I think everyone, this isn't a complicated issue. It's simply when a country starts putting tariffs up against ostensible allies in the name of ostensible national security, obviously that's going to create a big kerfuffle. And unfortunately, is going to be a big roadblock on the path to global economic growth, which everyone was saying is, everything's looking peachy keen and rosy up until you start slapping tariffs on everything and starting trade wars, and who knows how that can upset global trading relationships. So we're going to find out. I think this G7 summit is going to at least get some sort of clarity in terms of how much this is all a kind of bargaining move, art of the deal kind of front on the U.S. part, and how much of it is seriously meant, because I think this is going to be something that's going to be drilled home during this G7 summit, that the other leaders are not happy with Trump's decisions here.
Now, hasn't China already made some concessions? They lowered the tariff on imported cars from, I think, 25% to 15%?
That's right, and I heard the latest offer is that China is going to be willing to purchase $70 billion worth of U.S. goods. I assume that means in the next year, but I'm not sure about the time frame of that, but in return for guarantees against some of these protectionist policies. But again, I think this is all just negotiation at this point, so I'm not sure anything has been finalized.
Do you think we might see something at the G7 meeting, where the last G8 meeting where Russia was kicked out? At breakfast time, Putin was sitting by himself. Nobody would sit with him. Do you think he'll sit down with Trump?
I think there will be tensions. I think people are not quite ready to dump the U.S. at this point, because it is still too valuable a trading partner to simply just walk away from the table. But there will certainly be some tensions there, and some, I think, less smiles and handshakes kind of greetings, and maybe some more icy stares. So it very well could be, and that's actually something I think to keep an eye on for this summit. To what extent is Trump really the center of attention, in the sense that he's the one everyone is playing to, and how much will he be isolated by these positions?
How is Japan's stock market doing right now?
The Japanese markets are not relatively unchanged from the last time we talked. There has been a slight, it's gone slightly higher in the past week or so, but not particularly anything to blow the house down. The Nikkei 225 added, I think, 23 points the other day, so it's just slightly edging up, and it's not based on anything substantial, just Toyota reporting and Honda both reporting slightly up earnings, so it's nothing major in that sense. I think what people are really looking to is some of the more gigantic issues, especially oil prices, I think are going to be impacting the Japanese economy as always, and obviously there's some huge room for movement on the oil price in the near future, depending how things play out geopolitically, like with the Iran sanctions, and the extent that disrupts global oil flows, and then OPEC, and whether they decide to increase production or not. And obviously this is all going to play into oil prices, which is going to have a huge effect on the Japanese economy. So I think we're in something of a holding pattern at this point in time.
We'll have more with James Corbett right after the break.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the Pink, symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the Pink, symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with James Corbett. If all goes to plan, and of course we know as we speak this could be changing underneath our feet, Donald Trump and the leader of North Korea are supposed to meet on the 12th in Singapore, the world's cleanest city. Because if you're caught littering, I think there's very harsh penalties. But anyway, what do you think is going to happen there? And this is unusual in that there's been very little pre-negotiation from people underneath the two leaders.
Yes, there's a lot of question marks surrounding this summit, aren't there? And one of the indications of that actually comes from some of the reporting from here in Japan about the Japanese role in this and their position on all of this. And the point is often made that for Abe and for the Japanese government, the two big issues that need to be addressed from the Japanese perspective is obviously denuclearization and the fact that Japan wants sanctions to remain in place until there is a firm commitment and actual steps towards denuclearization. But secondarily, the other big issue from Japan's perspective is the abductee issue. And this is probably not something that's even on the radar of most Canadians, but in the late 70s, early 80s, I think 17 Japanese residents were actually abducted from Japan, taken off the, usually in coastal areas, literally jumped, thrown into a boat and taken to North Korea, where they were, some of them were used, the plan was to use them as Japanese teachers to train, North Korean spies in the Japanese language. Some of them, they just wanted the identity, so they were presumed immediately killed. But at any rate, this abductee issue has been a huge issue for the Japanese people and Japanese government for many years, and they still want this to be something that Trump will raise with Kim at the summit. I imagine that's not going to be a number one talking priority, however. But the interesting part of this is that the reporting here indicates that Japan is still not sure exactly how much in the loop they're going to be with regards to the summit, so they're hoping to send representatives to be there to get updates as to what is happening at the summit. But it may be the fact that, basically the Japanese government is learning about the summit the same way everyone else is, by reading news reports on it.
India's central bank has raised rates for the first time in more than 4 years. Does that mean Asia is going to move away from either zero or negative interest rates?
Well, I mean, it is an indicator that things could go in that direction, and that is actually interesting, especially given India's place right now as kind of a linchpin not just economically, but geopolitically increasingly. And you'll notice that I believe the official pronouncement, I just saw the headlines last week, but I believe the Asia-Pacific Fleet, or the Pacific Fleet of the U.S. Navy, is now going to be known as the Indo-Pacific Fleet, something along those lines. So America is positioning India to be potentially the sort of bulwark against China in the entire Asian region, and they're now going to start referring to it as the Indo-Pacific, just as a nod to the importance of the Indian relationship. Meanwhile, India has just recently come out to say they are not going to go along with the U.S. sanctions against Iran, because Iran is an increasingly important trading partner for India, and of course has all of that oil and natural gas and stuff that India wants to get its snoot into. So they're apparently going to be standing up against the U.S. on that policy issue, and they're also being wooed kind of, will they, won't they, with China, with regards to China's expansion plans and the whole Silk Road thing and all of this. So India and the Indian economy are really going to be bellwethers for Asia in a lot of different ways. So rising interest rates could indeed be a signal that Asia more generally is going to be moving into a rising interest rate environment.
We'll have more with James Corbett right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with James Corbett. James, do you know anything about the Bilderberg elite society and why they are so worried about all these nationalist and populist movements?
I know a great deal about Bilderberg. I've been covering it on my website for over a decade now. So, yes, I have a lot of information if people want to go to CorbettReport.com and just type Bilderberg into the search engine. I usually cover it every year, what's happening at the meeting. And as you point out, they've just released their agenda for this year, which is only something that they've been doing in the last few years, really, because of intense pressure, usually from the alternative media, not from the mainstream media, about this meeting. For people who've never heard of it, it's usually about 125 of some of the most richest and most powerful people on the planet, including the CEOs of many companies and NATO Secretary General and Director of the CIA and Henry Kissinger, and people like this get together in a room completely behind closed doors. Generally, they give there's no press conference, there's no coverage generally of this conference, and people have been fine with that, apparently, for half a century, until some people in the alternative media started kicking up a fuss about it. And they have released their agenda talking points for this year, and one of them, in fact, number one on the list, is populism in Europe, which is going to be something they're going to be discussing. What will they discuss about it? Well, one can imagine that, obviously, for a group that is comprised of so many people who are heavily invested in the globalization narrative, I think this populist wave, which is sweeping through Europe, is going to be a concern for them. So I'm sure they're going to find ways to try to address this. But as to what they actually discuss, of course, that's not going to be privy to the general public unless and until there's someone from inside the meeting that's willing to leak those details. Because everyone who attends the meeting is under Chatham House rules, which means they are allowed to characterize some of the things that are discussed in the meetings, but they're not allowed to say who said what, basically, in any concrete sense.
Well, are they worried that because those 125 people control over half the world's assets, that someday a government's going to say, why do you need $50 billion? Wouldn't it be better? We'll leave you $1 billion, but the rest of it should be in the pockets of the working poor.
Yes, I think that is obviously something that's going to be a concern. And in fact, Bilderberg, at least again, according to the official agenda, has been discussing this in various forms through the last few years, talking about, for example, the Precariat, which people probably have not heard of. You might have heard of proletariat, but Precariat means that there is a growing class of people who are basically in a very precarious position where their jobs are being either outsourced or even taken over by AI or robots or what have you. And this is an increasingly large share of the population that is on the verge of being unemployed, unemployable, or having to survive off the gig economy. And there's more and more people who are getting put in that position, and the obvious political ramifications of that could be very huge and could be manifesting in this populist wave that we're seeing right now. So this brings up the question of universal basic income and other ways of perhaps, potentially, maybe this will be used as a way of placating the public. And so these are the types of issues that are clearly going to be discussed behind closed doors in Turin, Italy this weekend.
Well, I mean, we have had revolutions in Russia and China and other countries where people thought perhaps sharing a little bit of the wealth would be a good idea. And, of course, the billionaires then became extinct. Do you think the way money moves around the world right now that really there's no way you can go after a billionaire's money if you wanted to?
Well, of course, the great irony is if you fast forward to today, Russia and China have certainly their share of billionaires, and that's come about because of the way those revolutions played out or failed to play out, or however you want to look at it. But anyway, yeah, I think we do get caught in the mindset that things can never fundamentally change, that the status quo that we've seen for the last few decades is the status quo and nothing major is going to happen. But you're exactly right. I mean, these types of monumental societal, almost civilizational forces that are combining right now in these trade wars and real wars and unemployment and AI and all of these issues are really coming to a head and are being addressed in these popular movements that very easily could turn into something much more revolutionary. And I think people shouldn't discount that. All it takes is some sort of major economic crisis or big geopolitical incident that could really upset the chessboard as we've known it and really change the nature of the game we're playing. And that is obviously something that is being talked about and discussed at the upper levels of government and business, but the question is, how are they going to try to deal with that?
North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, plans to meet up with the leader of Syria. What do you think they want to discuss?
That is an intriguing question, isn't it? And obviously, I think the thing that unites them is that feeling of being in the crosshairs of the international community. So I guess there's some sort of affinity there. But as to whether or not they can form any sort of trading relationship or anything meaningful, it seems extremely doubtful. But at any rate, it will be something to keep our eye on and see if anything eventuates from that.
James, anything else you wanted to throw in today?
I think that's it. I'm going to be talking about the Bayer-Monsanto merger in some of my upcoming work, so I hope people will stay tuned for that, because I think that's a pretty important business issue that's going to be affecting the entire planet, not just the U.S. or Europe. So I'm going to be talking about that more. People can stay tuned to my work at CorbettReport.com for more on that.
James, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been James Corbett, publisher of the CorbettReport.com. He was speaking to us from Japan. If you have any questions for James or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.